Imagine an artist whose work not only captures the essence of the African American experience, but also transforms the way we see history itself. Charles White's art was more than just images. It was a voice for justice, for power, and for resilience. In this video, I'm going to dive into Charles White and how he used his work to create powerful legacy of storytelling and social change. Born April 2nd, 1918 in Chicago, Illinois, he also died in October 3rd, 1979 in Los Angeles. His primary mediums were drawing, painting, and printmaking, and his themes are African American dignity, resilience, and heritage. He was known for portraying the strength and beauty of the African American people and becoming a leading figure in the 20th century American art. So the early life and influence of Charles White comes from, he was born and raised in Chicago by both of his parents. His mother told stories about African American history, but he faced a lot of social injustice and racial discrimination in high school because he wanted to be part of drama club and he was not allowed to do so because he was Black. So this fueled his drive for social justice, and it fueled his future works as well. His education, he attended the Art Institute of Chicago, and he was influenced by Mexican muralist Diego Rivera. His early works focused on themes of empowerment and resilience. So while he was in high school, he wanted to protest. So he tried to protest by refusing to do his history work, and that only worked for a period of time, but it didn't get him what he wanted. So he decided he wanted to graduate high school more than he wanted to protest, and he was able to get scholarships for his art, and it really fueled his path moving forward. So he was able to do some WPA work during the Great Depression. So he was able to get funding to create some murals that focus on African American life and history. He was able to create murals for the Hampton University, which was then called the Hampton Institute, and he was invited to create a mural for Howard University. So his WPA work gave him some early exposure and helped him to establish his theme of using art to uplift and empower others. So he relocated to New York City. He connected with artists, intellectuals, and activists, and it's also where he met his first wife, Elizabeth Catlett, who is also a phenomenal artist and um, a sculptor, sorry. So he was a part of the Harlem Renaissance legacy. He was friends with Langston Hughes and Paul Robeson. Paul Robeson is a great American tenor and American opera singer. He's incredibly important. If you've never heard of him, you should look him up. And then there's themes of social justice. He addressed civil rights issues within his work and racial injustice, often using his art as a form of activism. It's a platform for activism. As a draftsman, he is focusing on his works on paper, and he's using charcoal and graphites and potentially oils, but charcoals and graphites primarily to render his drawings. And then when we talk about academic realism, we are referring to his works on canvas and his execution with oil paints. So very quickly, we're going to look at a timeline of Charles White's work from 1940 to the 1970s. So from 1940 to 1950, we see a small body of Charles White's work. Primarily, these narratives focus on the body and physicality of the subjects that are being rendered. The overarching theme is labor and the labor-intensive work, and you can see the work that is you can see the work through how physical the bodies are interpreted through the images here. All right, and so 1952 through 1957, the images that you see here, Goodnight Irene, Mahalia Jackson, and Oh Mary, Don't You Weep, along with the portrait of Harry Belafonte. Um, all of these images really represent, singing or a Negro spiritual or a hymnal, and all of these songs typically they're either there to comfort or give hope to the people. So these images are important for interpreting that work. So the other side of color is a catalog that has a rich history of African American art history. If you're interested in learning more about the collection of Bill Cosby and their family, this is a great catalog to own. There's a link in the show notes if you're interested, but the Cosby family owns 20 Charles White drawings, and I only see two so far in the catalog. So feel free to pick up the catalog if you're interested in learning more about Charles White and his involvement in the Bill Cosby collection. This is one of the images that is in the Cosby, um, I'm sorry, the Other Side of Color catalog, and it's called Seeds of Heritage. And there is a woman who's rendered here, and she has on a lot of clothing, there's lots of fabrics and draperies, and she's considering the her womb and the child that she's carrying. And it's being in the present, thinking about the future, right? So Charles is also looking at this Felicitas Publicus. This is the European model for the work that he did with Seed of Heritage. So he's looking at art history and rendering this image. Yes, our images, she's very fully clothed and she's in these like loincloths. And Felicitas Publica, she has, her arms are exposed, like she has these very wispy and ethereal looking clothes you can kind of see through. But our um, our mother of heritage here in this image is fully clothed and kept within her dignity. So the images that you see here from 1965 to 1969, these are images that are in the public. They're not part of the Cosby collection. They were sold at auction recently. So you will see Nobody Knows My Name, number one, Jacques, number five, and I Have a Dream series, number 11, Study for the Wall, and then there is The Matriarch 1969. So if you're interested in any of these works, you will be able to find them on mutualart.com. Okay, and following up, this is the end of the timeline, 1970 and 1972. So Charles White, Untitled. This is an image of two persons. This is the first time I've seen one of Charles White's images where the faces are not rendered. These are people side by side commuting from slave ships, and he is representing them in a very humane situation and in a very humane way in a very unhumane situation. So this is the first time I've ever seen these, and I think I like these the best out of all of his works. And then there's 1972, Charles White, Pope X, from 1972, and this is also available at mutualart.com. I like the diagonal of this. I like how he's not looking at you, he's looking away from the audience. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was just a singular Black Pope ever. So that would be pretty amazing if he is. Later career in teaching. So Charles White moves to Los Angeles. He joined the Otis Art Institute as an instructor where he mentored many emerging artists. He left a legacy behind as an educator. He taught and inspired younger artists, including David Hammonds and Carrie James Marshall. He continued in his work of activism. His art continued to reflect social justice themes up into his passing. So he left an enduring influence. His work remains a significant discussions in Black identity and representation. His students and admirers continue his mission of using art as social justice, and there were exhibitions where he was recognized, celebrated in major exhibitions worldwide with works in collections like MoMA and LACMA. And this is briefly just a entry to the Charles White retrospective at the MoMA in 2018 and 2019. And finally, key takeaways that Charles White's themes were based on resilience, dignity, and the struggle for justice were all very central to his legacy. Art as a voice, his work exemplifies art's power to represent marginalized voices and the legacy in education. Both as an artist and as an educator, he shaped generations of Black artists. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below. And I have lots of links in the show notes, so feel free to jump into those if you'd like to more resources on learning about Charles White and his career. Thank you so much for being here. Observe with intention and love your neighbor as yourself. Take care.